The Arizona desert is vast, a place where the silence feels ancient and the night sky unfolds like a cosmic canvas. Out here, stars hang low and sharp, scattered across the heavens in dizzying numbers, and the air cools so quickly after sunset that the sand seems to exhale. You imagine yourself standing there, boots planted in the loose dust, looking up at that immensity, the kind of silence that makes you feel watched, even when no one else is around. Above this desert silence, a familiar roar breaks across the sky. An F-16 Fighting Falcon, one of America's most formidable fighter jets, cuts through the dark, engines glowing faintly, leaving contrails dissolving into blackness. This is routine. Arizona skies are often home to military exercises, drills that locals barely glance up at anymore. But tonight isn't routine. Tonight, something will happen that no drill manual, no flight checklist, no training scenario has ever prepared for. You hear the pilot's voice crackle through comms, calm at first, professional. He checks his instruments, calling in altitude, bearing, speed. Everything reads normal. Then his tone shifts. Not fear exactly, but curiosity tinged with unease. "Command, I've got something at my 9 o'clock. No radar return. Visual only." That line alone sends chills. Fighter pilots train their eyes as much as their instruments, but when they see something that the radar refuses to acknowledge, it's never good. Through the canopy glass, the pilot describes a shimmer, a metallic gleam that shouldn't exist in this patch of air. Not another jet, not a drone, not even a bird. The object hovers, then moves, impossibly fluid against the jet stream. It reflects light without being lit, as if it bends the stars themselves around its shape. Command asks for confirmation. The pilot steadies his breathing, and in that moment, you imagine his gloved hands tightening on the stick. He repeats, "It's real. It's right here with me." The desert below lies unaware, sleeping towns tucked between red rock mesas and endless cactus plains. Coyotes howl in the distance, but no one on the ground knows what is unfolding thousands of feet above. The F-16 makes a slight roll to flank the object. The pilot accelerates, tests whether it's a mirage, a reflection, or perhaps another craft. But the object moves in tandem, perfectly matching speed without visible propulsion. No exhaust trail, no wings, no sound, just a presence. It's here the comms record the strangest phrase, a line that will echo through every debriefing, every whispered retelling, every conspiracy forum for years to come. The pilot says, quietly but clearly, "It's looking at me." Moments later, alarms scream inside the cockpit. Proximity warnings flash red across the pilot's HUD. The unknown object surges forward, colliding with the jet in a blur of light. The F-16 jolts violently, as if struck by a force that shouldn't exist in the physics of aviation. From the ground, a rancher miles away glances up, awakened by what he thinks is thunder. Instead, he sees a streak of fire carve across the sky, fragments breaking away like sparks from a forge. The sound rattles his windows, and his dogs bark madly, tails tucked. In the air, the pilot's voice cuts once more through the static, fragmented and urgent. "Command, impact, object is..." And then nothing. Silence. The radar screen in the control tower goes blank. The F-16's transponder drops offline, its coordinates locked in place for a fraction of a second before vanishing into the void. Rescue teams scramble. Helicopters lift from bases, their searchlights sweeping desert canyons and barren flats. The crash site is eventually found, wreckage scattered across a rocky wash, metal twisted, scorched and broken. But not all of it belongs to the jet. Among the fragments, investigators find something that does not burn, does not bend, does not fracture. Pieces of material that reflect light strangely, almost too perfectly. Alloy that resists analysis, shards that hum faintly when touched, as though still alive with energy. And there, buried halfway in the sand, a fragment shaped like nothing from Earth. Smooth, curved, etched with patterns that seem deliberate, yet unreadable. The pilot is gone. His final words hang heavy. "It's looking at me." You picture yourself there, boots crunching on scorched stone, staring at the wreckage. The air still smells of ozone and burnt fuel. The desert night swallows sound, leaving only the rustle of wind through sagebrush. You bend closer to the alien fragment, and for an instant, you could swear it vibrates in response. Something was up there. Something collided with an American warplane in Arizona skies. And while officials will draft their reports, while press releases will speak of mechanical failure and pilot error, the fragments tell a different story. You can't shake the image. A pilot, alone in his cockpit, whispering that something was watching him from beyond the stars. And if that something is watching him, maybe it's watching you too. The desert keeps its silence, but the night feels heavier now. The story has only begun. The silence after a radio cuts out is heavier than thunder. In the command center, screens glow with empty grids, the F-16 signal gone as if erased. No mayday, no beacon, just dead air. You imagine the operators leaning closer to their consoles, voices tightening, hearts racing. A military jet doesn't just vanish. Even when downed, it screams its death across frequencies, distress codes, emergency transponders, locator pings. But tonight, the airwaves remain clean, too clean. And then comes the replay. Audio technicians scrub through the pilot's last seconds. Static fills most of the tape, but fragments emerge, carried on the edge of distortion. Object is, I can't break free. Not alone. His final words arrive like whispers from a dream. The chilling part isn't just what he said. It's the tone. No panic, no shouting. Instead, there's awe, like he had seen something that overwhelmed fear itself. The file is locked under classification, yet copies leak. First to a low-level analyst, then to a journalist with more courage than caution. Within days, the words spread across forums, whispered on podcasts, dissected in late-night discussions. Not alone, but for the men in uniform, the mystery deepens on the ground. The desert search rescue teams scour the crash site under floodlights. Soldiers in black uniforms cordon off the area, their boots sinking into sand still hot from burning fuel. Every inch of wreckage is tagged, logged, and hauled away under tarps. Locals watch from a distance, binoculars trembling in their hands, cell phones raised until security forces push them back. The strangest thing isn't what lies broken, it's what doesn't. No ejection seat, no parachute canopy, no body. The pilot is gone. His name will never hit the papers. He becomes one more shadow in the endless catalogue of training accidents no one is supposed to question. But among the wreckage are traces of something different. Something that refuses to fit any checklist. Black boxes usually survive. They're built to withstand fire, impact, salt water, almost anything. But the one from this jet is different. Its casing is warped, almost melted, though the flames weren't hot enough for such damage. And when engineers finally pry it open, they find something strange in the recorded data. The flight path. The telemetry shows the F-16 performing maneuvers beyond its limits. Sharp angles that would tear wings apart, speeds that strain physics itself. Yet the jet didn't disintegrate until impact. For 3 minutes before the crash, it flew in patterns too precise, too unnatural. It's as though the jet wasn't flying under its own control. One line of code repeats in the logs, spikes in electromagnetic interference, the kind of field strong enough to fry electronics. Yet the instruments didn't fail. They behaved as if obeying an external signal. Pilots whisper among themselves. They know what electromagnetic warfare looks like. But no adversary has technology like this. Not Russia, not China, not anyone. And then there's the voice, the final whisper. Buried deep in the cockpit audio, past the pilot's words, past the alarms, past the roar of engines, analysts isolate something else. A second voice. Not human, not mechanical. A resonance layered under the frequencies like a vibration more than speech. At first, no one notices. Then, when slowed and processed, the sound takes on a rhythm, almost like language. The technician who finds it swears he hears a phrase. Not English, not any known tongue, but structured, deliberate, undeniable. The recording is buried instantly, locked behind clearance levels so high that even the general commanding the search 1T confirm it exists. But rumors spread anyway. Engineers talk, soldiers whisper, and by the time the first online leaks appear, the story has already grown teeth. The pilot didn't just collide with something unknown. He spoke with it. The locals remember. In nearby towns, Nogales, Sierra Vista, Tucson, residents report strange things that night. A flash in the sky like a second moon, a low hum that rattled windows, dogs barking wildly, then cowering. One man claims his truck stalled for 5 minutes as a silver ribbon drifted overhead. Another swears he saw the jet banking hard, pursued not by another plane, but by a streak of light that bent like water. His words are dismissed as desert hallucination, but his eyes, filmed by a shaky phone camera, carry terror too raw to fake. Soon, whispers ignite. The collision wasn't an accident, it was an encounter. The desert at night, imagine, standing there yourself. The sand cold against your boots, wind tugging your jacket. You look up at the sky where it happened, where a pilot disappeared into light. The stars shine indifferent, but your gut twists. What if he didn't die? What if he was taken? You replay his words in your mind. It's looking at me. And you wonder, what if it still is? Wreckage that doesn't belong. The official inventory of the crash site lists engine fragments, landing gear struts, and twisted sheets of fuselage. But the men who worked cleanup quietly tell another story. In the debris were pieces no one could identify, not alloys known to aircraft design, not composites used in modern aviation. Instead, fragments so light they floated briefly on the desert breeze before falling like ash. When touched, they were cool, almost colder than the air itself, as though heat refused to cling to them. One soldier, years later, describes it in a bar outside Phoenix. He was young then, too young to know the value of silence. He says the fragments moved when light hit them, like the metal was shifting, rearranging itself in patterns your brain couldn't quite register. They told us to load it under lead tarps, he recalls, voice lowered. Said it was classified material, but I've seen wreckage before. That wasn't wreckage, that was something else. The object. Among the recovered items is the strangest of all, an object the size of a football, perfectly smooth, perfectly black. No seams, no markings. Engineers attempt to analyze it, but the tools rebel. Scanners return blank results. Lasers pass through it, bending as though the object isn't really there. It absorbs heat, reflects nothing, and yet feels solid to the touch. The first night, it sits in the lab, every compass in the room spins madly. Computer screens glitch with static, and the cameras trained on it shut down exactly at 3:17 a.m. without reason. When the scientists review the footage later, they find one frame preserved, just one. In it, the black object glows faintly, a pulse of white like an eye opening. The frame is erased minutes after discovery, but not before someone copies it. Within weeks, the image appears on hidden forums, labeled simply, The Core. Missing men. The cleanup crew is rotated quickly. Some are reassigned, some vanish. One technician who handled the object is found weeks later, wandering the desert barefoot, dehydrated, unable to explain how he got there. His only words, repeated again and again, "It's still moving, it's still moving." He's confined to a psychiatric ward, and his testimony buried. But his sister leaks it in an interview years later, her voice trembling. That's when people start calling the Arizona crash the silent collision. Disinformation. The Air Force issues a statement, a training accident, mechanical failure, pilot error. The press swallows it. But online, threads explode with alternative theories. Some claim it was a weapons test gone wrong. Others insist it was a UFO retrieval mission disguised as an accident. A few whisper that the F-16 never collided. It was pulled apart. Satellite imagery becomes a battleground. Analysts scour maps of the desert, pointing to scorched patches of earth, strange geometric shapes in the sand, glowing anomalies at night. Each photo is dissected, each theory shouted down and replaced. And yet, one question lingers, unanswered. Where is the pilot? Families left in the dark. His family receives no body, only a folded flag and a letter of condolence. The details are absent, replaced by the same sterile phrases: in the line of duty, classified mission, service to his country. But his wife swears she received a call 1 week after the crash. The line was silent. Then came static, and then his voice, her husband's voice. "Don't look for me," he said. "It's not over." The line went dead, the call traced to nowhere. She tells this story once, on a late-night radio show. Listeners flood the lines with theories, sympathy, and warnings. She never speaks publicly again. The whistleblower months later, a former radar operator, breaks silence. He claims the F-16 wasn't alone that night. On his screen he saw 2 blips, one the jet, the other a moving distortion that played with speed and distance like no aircraft could. He swears the distortion was tracking the F-16, and when the signals merged, both vanished. What we saw wasn't collision, he insists. It was assimilation. The statement is buried under ridicule, but believers cling to it. They connect the dots. The strange object recovered, the warped flight path, the missing body. If the pilot wasn't destroyed, was he taken? The desert legend. In Arizona, myths spread like wildfire. Campers swear they see strange lights above the mountains. Hikers tell of hearing voices carried on desert winds, whispering their names in tones not quite human. Truckers driving late at night on lonely highways report glimpses of a pilot standing in the road, helmet under his arm, only to vanish when headlights hit him. They call him the Phantom Pilot. Some believe it's his spirit wandering. Others believe it's not him at all, but something wearing his image. And in the background of every story is the same refrain, the feeling of being watched, as though the desert itself has grown eyes. Your place in the story. You imagine standing at the crash site now, years later. Nothing remains but scorched earth, a scar in the sand. But as the wind shifts, you feel something. Pressure in your ears, a hum in your chest, the prickling sense of being measured. You remember his words, "It's looking at me," and you realize maybe it never stopped. The desert whispers, and the first sightings. The desert doesn't forget. That's what locals say when they talk about Arizona. Its vast openness, its silence, its memory etched into every canyon and dune. Whatever happened with the F-16 was supposed to be forgotten, filed away under secrecy and silence. But the desert has its own way of speaking back. Whispers in the wind. The first reports come from hikers in the Superstition Mountains. They describe the same odd experience. A low hum vibrating in the air, then a voice, faint, distorted, and always just beyond comprehension. One man claims the whisper said his name. Another swears it repeated the words. It's still moving. At first, no one connects this to the F-16 crash. The desert has always carried stories. Ghost towns, lost mines, shadows on the cliffs. But as the weeks pass, more hikers, campers, and hunters hear it. Different voices, same message, and always after midnight. The first sightings. Then the lights begin. Drivers on Route 60 report hovering spheres, blue, green, and silver, that hang over the road, shift without sound, and vanish the moment headlights hit them. One trucker describes a glowing shape pacing his rig for nearly 10 miles. He says it moved like a predator stalking prey, never pulling ahead, never falling behind. When he finally pulled into a gas station, the lights shot vertically into the sky and disappeared. The gas station security camera caught nothing, but the trucker's dash cam shows something. A flicker, like static, darting through the darkness. Frame by frame, it looks almost like a shadow-bending light. He uploads the footage. Within hours, it spreads through forums dedicated to UAPs. The comments are divided. Some call it fake. Others swear it's proof the collision unleashed something new. The camper's tale. 2 college students camping near Payson record one of the most disturbing encounters. They wake to find their tent glowing with soft blue light, as if the fabric itself is lit from within. Outside, they hear footsteps, slow, heavy, circling. One of them dares to unzip the tent just enough to peek. She swears she sees a figure standing just at the tree line. Helmet, flight suit, the outline of an Air Force pilot. But his face is wrong. Where eyes should be, there are only blank black voids. She screams. The light vanishes. When they emerge minutes later, the campsite is silent. No tracks in the dirt. No evidence anyone was ever there. They leave that night, abandoning their gear. Days later, their footage appears online. A shaky recording of their whispered panic, the glow seeping through the tent fabric, and the outline of that inhuman pilot. The internet christens him the Phantom Airman. Patterns emerge. Investigators notice something unsettling. The sightings cluster in a wide arc across Arizona, always within 50 miles of the original crash site. They happen at intervals, roughly every 11 days, and they escalate, each new encounter stranger, bolder, closer. It's as if the phenomenon is expanding, reaching outward. And the whispers grow clearer. One camper captures an EVP recording, a faint voice, mechanical yet human, repeating over and over. "Don't look for me. It's not over." The same words the pilot's wife claimed to hear in her mysterious phone call. Skeptics and believers. The phenomenon splits the community. Skeptics dismiss it as desert folklore feeding on itself. They argue it's hallucinations caused by exhaustion, dehydration, or the desert's harsh environment. But believers, UFO researchers, paranormal enthusiasts, locals who have seen too much, insist it's something bigger. They argue that the pilot wasn't killed but absorbed, transformed into something neither human nor machine. The desert is haunted, one researcher says, but not by ghosts, by something that remembers being a man. The disappearing hiker. Then comes the first disappearance. A seasoned hiker named Miguel ventures into the Mazatzal wilderness, determined to record evidence of the whispers. He live streams his trek, narrating the landscape, laughing at internet trolls in the chat. But as night falls, his tone changes. He whispers that he hears footsteps behind him. His camera jerks, catching a brief silhouette, a pilot's helmet reflecting faint blue light. The stream cuts to static. Search parties find his gear days later. His phone is intact. The tent is torn, shredded in long, clean slashes. But Miguel is gone. No tracks, no blood, nothing. On his phone, the last video file is corrupted, except for the final 2 seconds, where his voice is clear. "It's looking at me." The same words from the recovery technician years earlier. Your place in the story. Imagine standing there, in that wilderness at night. The silence so thick you hear your heartbeat. The stars above like scattered glass. Then the wind shifts, carrying a voice that doesn't belong. You turn, and for a split second you see him, the Phantom Airman, watching from the shadows, helmet glinting, face empty. And in that moment, you realize the desert is no longer silent. It's speaking. And whatever it's saying, it's not finished. The government's silent hand. You don't notice them at first. That's how it begins. The government presence in Arizona. Quiet, unannounced. A sudden line of black SUVs parked at a gas station. A helicopter that hovers at night without lights. Men in plain clothes who never seem to sweat, no matter how hot the desert gets. Locals call them the shadows. The sudden restrictions. Within weeks of the first sightings, the Federal Aviation Administration issues new temporary flight restrictions across wide swaths of Arizona airspace. Officially, they cite training operations and airspace safety. But pilots, both commercial and private, notice the restrictions don't follow typical patterns. Instead, They seem to align perfectly with the arcs of reported lights, whispers, and disappearances. One small-town newspaper reports that a hiker AS family was warned not to discuss Miguel AS' disappearance to avoid interfering with an ongoing military operation. The article disappears from the online archive within 24 hours. The editor claims a server glitch. No one believes him. The silent convoy. One night, a rancher near Globe wakes to the sound of engines. He steps onto his porch and watches as a convoy of unmarked trucks rolls past his land. Each truck covered, tarped, guarded. The headlights are blacked out. The soldiers wear night vision goggles. In the middle of the convoy, a long, lead-lined container. It vibrates as it passes, rattling the windows of his house. He swears he hears something moving inside, shifting against the walls. The convoy disappears down a dirt road that doesn't appear on maps. By morning, there's no sign it was ever there, except for the dead cattle scattered along his fence line, eyes blackened as if burned from within. Whispers in the wire's phone lines begin to act strangely. One local teacher, who lives just a few miles from the crash site, receives calls at odd hours. When she answers, there's no one on the other end, only static, followed by the faint sound of a pilot's breathing. Others report similar experiences. One woman claims her television turns on by itself, displaying scrambled footage of the desert, as if filmed from a cockpit view. In each case, the recordings end the same way, a voice whispering, "Don't look for me." The journal leak. Then comes the leak. An anonymous insider mails a package to an independent journalist in Phoenix. Inside, photocopied pages from what appears to be a pilot's flight journal. The entries are disturbing. They describe chasing an object with impossible velocity. They mention systems failing, radios jamming, weapons locking on by themselves. One entry, dated the night of the crash, reads simply, "It's not human. If I don't return, tell my wife I tried." The journalist attempts to publish the documents. Her website goes dark within an hour. Her social media accounts vanish. She hasn't been seen since. Her friends claim she went on vacation. No one believes them either. Cover stories. In the weeks that follow, the government ramps up official explanations. The lights are drones. The voices are pranks. The disappearances are runaways. They hold press conferences with polished spokespeople who smile as they assure the public there's nothing unusual happening in Arizona. But each denial makes the rumors grow louder. Locals insist the desert is being watched. Drones buzz overhead, scanning with infrared. Men in black uniforms patrol back roads at night. And deep in the superstitions, hikers find new fencing, signs that warn, restricted area. Trespassers will be prosecuted. But no one remembers those signs being there before. The rancher's warning. One night, a young couple driving home from a bar stops when they see a man standing on the side of the road. He's waving them down frantically. It's the same rancher who saw the convoy. His face is pale, his hands shaking. He tells them to leave the area, to never go camping near the crash site. "They're not keeping us safe," he whispers. "They're keeping it safe. Whatever came down that night, it's not gone. They're feeding it." Before they can ask what he means, headlights appear down the road. A black SUV pulls up, and the rancher vanishes into the desert. The couple doesn't speak of it again, except to post a frantic Reddit thread the next day. The post is deleted within hours, your role in the silence. And you, sitting there, listening, what would you do if the government warned you to stay quiet? Would you obey, pretend none of it is real, and move on with your life? Or would you lean in closer, listen to the whispers, and risk becoming part of the story yourself? The desert doesn't forget, and now neither can you. The phantom airman returns. It begins with a voice. Late one night, a ham radio operator in Mesa picks up an emergency frequency, one that hasn't been active since the crash. He adjusts the dials, leans closer, and freezes. It's a pilot, a voice calm but strained, repeating the same words again and again. Eagle 2, requesting vector. Eagle 2, requesting vector. The operator checks the call sign. Eagle 2 was the downed F-16, but the pilot, Captain Briggs, was confirmed dead. The voice that shouldn't exist word spreads quickly in underground forums. Soon, dozens of other hobbyists claim they too picked up transmissions from Eagle 2. Some record the voice, replaying it online. But every clip ends differently. Sometimes the pilot asks for help. Sometimes he whispers coordinates in the desert. And sometimes the voice simply cuts off mid-sentence, replaced by static, like someone pulling the plug. Military officials dismiss it as signal interference. But the transmissions don't sound like interference. They sound human. The figure in the flight suit. 2 hikers exploring near the crash site at dusk report seeing a man standing on a ridge. He's wearing a torn flight suit, helmet dangling at his side. They wave, thinking he's part of a search crew. The figure waves back, but when they approach, he vanishes. No footprints, no sign of descent. Only the faint smell of burned jet fuel hanging in the cool desert air. The hikers never return to that ridge. The phantom in the cockpit. Weeks later, radar technicians at Luke Air Force Base review training footage from a night exercise. At the edge of the screen, for a few frames, another plane appears, an F-16 that shouldn't exist. When they zoom in, the cockpit glows with pale light. Inside sits a pilot, helmet on, perfectly still. The technicians scrub back and forth, but each time they pause the tape, the pilot's head is turned slightly differently, sometimes facing forward, sometimes facing directly at the camera. The footage is classified. The technicians are reassigned. The ghost at the gas station stories trickle in from locals, always the same. A lone airman appears at desert gas stations, asking for directions. He buys nothing, drinks nothing, just asks. And when the clerk glances away for even a second, he's gone, leaving behind the faint smell of smoke and sometimes a blackened dog tag on the counter. The dog tags never match real personnel records. Whispers of a return. Some believe Captain Briggs never died in the crash, that he's trapped between worlds replaying his final mission. Others whisper something darker, that whatever the F-16 collided with has worn his image like a mask. When people describe the phantom, they always mention the same detail: the eyes behind the visor. Too bright, too cold, not human. Your desert encounter. Now imagine this. You're driving alone on an empty highway. The desert stretches endlessly around you. In the distance, you see a figure standing at the roadside, a man in a flight suit, hand raised in a weary salute. Would you stop? Would you roll down your window? Or would you drive faster, refusing to look in the mirror, praying the seat behind you stays empty? Because in Arizona they say once you see the phantom airman, he sees you too, and he doesn't let go. The black box conspiracy. When the wreckage of the downed F-16 was first hauled away under tarps and armed guard, locals assumed everything would vanish into silence. A military accident, another closed case. But whispers surfaced. The jet's black box, its flight data recorder, was not destroyed in the collision. It survived, and it contained something no one was supposed to hear, a tape that shouldn't exist. A defense contractor, who claimed to have seen the transcript, describes it differently from any other crash log he's read. At first, it's routine: altitude, airspeed, the occasional radio chatter. But then, at 0213, everything changes. The cockpit mics pick up breathing, rapid, uneven. The pilot mutters, "It's on me, it's right on me." A sharp noise follows, like static and metal tearing at once. Then silence. But seconds later, another voice speaks. Not the pilot. Something layered, distorted, deep, and insect-like. The words are unintelligible, but the tone is commanding, almost mocking. The final entry is Briggs's scream, cut short by impact. Sealed evidence. Officially, the black box was damaged beyond recovery. Unofficially, copies circulate among intelligence staff, passed like contraband. Anyone caught with them vanishes. A base mechanic brags to his friends about hearing the tape. A week later, he's found drowned in a reservoir 2 counties away. His death is ruled accidental. The friends never mention the tape again. Data that defies physics leaked fragments of the digital readout add more fuel. According to the numbers, Briggs's jet performed maneuvers that should have been impossible. 20 G turns, instantaneous altitude drops, accelerations beyond the jet's structural limits. No human pilot could survive that, unless Briggs wasn't in control. The second black box, and then the stranger rumor that the unknown object itself had a recorder. Not mechanical, but something organic, humming with signals no one could decode. Recovered in pieces, it was shipped to a lab in Nevada. Since then, strange power surges plague the region. Locals claim the lights flicker at the exact same minute every night. 02:13, the time of the collision. Your choice. Now picture this. You're handed a copy of the black box recording. Just you, alone in the dark. You press play. Do you listen to Briggs's final moments, his voice cracking as something approaches his jet? Do you endure the alien tones that follow, even if they stay with you long after the tape ends? Or do you smash the recorder, fearing the sound itself might be alive? Because in Arizona, the story isn't about what Briggs saw. It's about what he heard. And now, maybe you hear it too. Cover-up or cosmic warning? The desert has always been good at swallowing secrets. Aircraft disappear over the horizon, voices echo and fade, and the sand covers all traces in time. But this time, the story refuses to die. Official silence. Within days of the collision, Air Force spokespeople held a press briefing. Calm, rehearsed, and calculated. They described it as a routine training accident. No hostile craft, no enemy encounter, no unidentified object. When asked about strange lights reported by locals, the spokesman smiled. People often mistake meteor showers or drones for something more mysterious. It was a dismissal as sharp as it was insulting, especially to the townspeople who saw the sky burn that night. But something in the officials' eyes betrayed the script. A stiffness, a fear, as if they were under orders not to say the wrong word. The whistleblower weeks. Later, a civilian contractor stationed near Davis-Monthan AFB broke silence. He claimed he was tasked with cleaning up the crash site, and what he saw wasn't scrap metal. It was something grown. Curved plates of silver-black material that pulsed faintly, like they were alive. The Air Force, he said, wasn't just hiding wreckage. They were studying it, trying to learn from it. The man disappeared before he could share photographs. His online accounts were erased. The only trace left, a voicemail to his sister, recorded the night before he vanished. She plays it once on a podcast. It wasn't ours. It wasn't theirs. It was something else. If you're hearing this, don't trust the sky. The episode is scrubbed from streaming platforms within 24 hours. Cosmic warning. Some theorists argue the event wasn't hostile at all, that the unknown craft didn't collide, it intercepted. Why? To prevent the jet from firing, to stop a weapon from reaching its target. Satellite leaks suggest an unusual energy buildup detected over Arizona airspace minutes before the crash. A buildup that, if unleashed, could have devastated a wide area. Did the object stop the jet, or save us from it? Growing divide. In Arizona, two camps form. One believes the Air Force is covering up a tragedy, a pilot sacrificed to hide a secret weapons test gone wrong. The other believes Briggs encountered something beyond human comprehension. A warning, a demonstration of power, a reminder that Earth's skies are not ours alone. Both sides agree on one thing: the truth is not in the official reports. The desert knows. And every night, locals gather at the ridges overlooking the crash site. They stare into the stars, waiting. Some say they see faint glimmers, objects darting against the backdrop of constellations. Others hear a low hum on the wind, like engines circling overhead. But the strangest part? On some nights, their phones pick up an unknown frequency, a transmission repeating the same 3 words, "We are here." The pilots who knew too much whispers in the hangars. At first, Briggs' crash was treated as an isolated incident. But whispers began spreading across Air Force hangars, stories too similar to ignore. Pilots stationed at Luke AFB, Holloman, and Nellis started speaking in coded conversations, usually late at night when the hangar was quiet and the mechanics had gone home. They spoke of encounters with objects that moved too fast, too silently, and too intelligently to be any known aircraft. One F-16 pilot described chasing a sphere of light that mirrored his every maneuver before vanishing straight up into the stars. Another admitted that during a routine patrol, his radar lit up with a shape that wasn't there visually, until it suddenly appeared directly in front of him, forcing him to swerve hard to avoid collision. The unwritten reports, most of these encounters never reached the official logbooks. Why? Because the pilots knew what would happen. If they filed a UFO/UAP report, they'd be reassigned, grounded, or labeled as unstable. Careers ruined overnight. So the events were scribbled in personal journals, whispered in confidence, or shared over beers in dimly lit bars near the bases. But after Briggs's crash, the stories started aligning. And worse, some pilots admitted they'd been warned. Do not engage. One of Briggs's closest friends, Captain Rachel Hayes, finally spoke to an independent journalist under anonymity. She revealed that during a classified briefing weeks before the crash, pilots were given a chilling instruction. If you encounter unknown aerial phenomena, do not engage, do not fire, do not pursue, break off immediately. The directive was unlike anything Hayes had ever heard. Normally, unidentified craft would be intercepted and shadowed. But this was different. It was as if command knew exactly what was in the skies and feared the consequences of confrontation. The hidden patterns. When researchers compiled the pilot testimonies, a strange pattern emerged. The encounters clustered around key military sites, nuclear storage facilities, advanced weapons testing grounds, and crucially, areas near secret aerospace projects. Could the unknown objects be drawn to these places for a reason? To monitor, to warn, or to interfere? Briggs' secret flight path. Then came the bombshell. Declassified flight path data revealed Briggs' F-16 wasn't flying a random training route. His trajectory intersected a restricted zone, one rumored to be a testing ground for next-generation directed energy weapons. Had Briggs stumbled into a live test? Or had something else been watching that zone and decided to intervene? Silence and fear. When the journalist who interviewed Hayes prepared to release her story, she received a visit. Two men, unmarked suits, government plates. They didn't threaten her directly. They just advised her to consider her future. The story never aired. Hayes was transferred to a desk job, and the whispers among pilots grew louder, because by then, it wasn't just Arizona. Similar encounters were being reported in New Mexico, Nevada, and over the Pacific coast. Always the same: blinding speed, impossible maneuvers, and a chilling intelligence. The unasked question, the real question, wasn't whether Briggs's crash was unique. The question was, how many other collisions have been quietly buried? And if Briggs's final moments were a warning, who or what was that warning truly meant for? The final revelation, the vanishing files. When investigators tried to reopen Briggs's crash case in early 2025, they discovered something unsettling. Entire sections of the official crash report were missing, blacked out, classified far above normal accident reviews. Even the cockpit voice recordings, the black box, were corrupted. A technical impossibility, according to experts. But what little remained painted a chilling picture. In the final 30 seconds of audio, Briggs's voice was steady but strained. "It's right on me. It's not." Static. Then silence. No explosion. No impact call. Just gone. The secret witness. Yet there was someone who claimed to have seen it all. A retired radar operator, stationed near the restricted zone, reached out to researchers. He swore that on the night of Briggs's crash, radar screens lit up with impossible signatures, objects surrounding the F-16 in tight formation. They moved like they were hurting him, he said, voice trembling. And then, his blip vanished. The operator was dismissed from duty shortly after. His testimony never entered the official record. The Arizona Sky Grid. As word leaked, independent sky watchers started their own surveillance. They noticed something bizarre. Above Arizona, every few nights, strange, luminous formations appeared. Not stars, not satellites, moving in precise geometric patterns, circles, triangles, even a pulsing grid. It was as if something was mapping the skies, and Briggs had flown straight into it. The hidden hand. By mid-2025, speculation reached fever pitch. Some believed the F-16 had collided with a craft from another world. Others whispered it was the Air Force's own experimental drone, silenced to protect a secret program. But a growing number suspected a third possibility, that the unknown objects weren't weapons or visitors, but observers, watching, waiting, responding only when humans crossed invisible lines. And Briggs? He may have crossed one. The leaked memo. In August, a leaked Air Force memo surfaced. It contained just one chilling phrase: maintain silence. The phenomenon is not hostile unless provoked. The implications were staggering. Had Briggs' last maneuvers been seen as aggression? Or had the collision been a deliberate act, an unmistakable warning? The final image. Weeks after the crash, hikers in the Arizona desert reported something strange. A blackened ring scorched into the desert floor, perfectly symmetrical, nearly 200 feet across. No crash debris, no wreckage, just the mark. Locals began whispering that it wasn't where the F-16 went down. It was where something else had landed. Or left. The story that won't die. Despite silence from officials, the legend of Briggs' flight has only grown. Pilots still whisper, civilians still record strange lights, and investigators still dig. Every new report points back to the same conclusion. The Arizona skies are not empty. And one pilot's accident may have been the first direct encounter. The whisper in the dark. So next time you look up at the desert night, remember this. A man once flew into those same skies. A man trained, skilled, and fearless. He never came back. And whatever he found up there may still be waiting.